Okay, everyone, we're now live, please. Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Planning Committee, and welcome to those who are watching online. If the fire alarm is activated, please vacate the offices via the stairs, either through the security door on my right or opposite the lifts in the foyer. Please do not use the lifts. Please assemble in Hawley Square on the green. Officers will assist you and advise when it is deemed safe to return to the chamber. Does anyone intend to film the meeting? No. Even so, I would advise that speakers using the microphones are picked up by the cameras recording the meeting, and members of the public in the public gallery behind the speakers may be picked up by those cameras and have their image captured. Any member of the public who objects to the possibility of being filmed may wish to take this opportunity to move or leave the meeting. Would everyone present please ensure their mobile phones are turned to silent and that they are not used to make or receive phone calls or messages in the chamber whilst this meeting is in progress. I have the following members who wish to speak under Council Procedure Rule 20.1, and that is Councillor Garner, who is going to be speaking on behalf of Councillor Austin.
Correct, on the second item, yeah.
Thank you. Are there any other members who wish to speak under Council Procedure Rule 20.1? Thank you. The following applications have been reserved for public speaking. Item 4A, Domus, formerly Plot 10 of land adjacent to the Clifftop, North Foreland Avenue, Broadstairs. Item 4B, 38 Effingham Street, Ramsgate. And item 4I, land rear of 67 Stone Road, Broadstairs. I don't have any apologies. Are there any apologies? No, thank you. Oh, sorry.
Councillor George Rizeki.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So that's Councillor Rizeki and Councillor Alban. Are there any declarations of interest? And at that point, I think I need to bring in Councillor Garner.
Okay, sorry, I thought what you said earlier covered that, but yes, I have an interest in the second item, which I'm going to speak on behalf of Councillor Austin, and excuse myself from the debate.
Thank you. So, do members agree that the minutes of the... Oh, sorry.
Councillor Wright is hoping to replace George Rizeki, but she may be a little late.
Okay, thank you. So, if she arrives, we'll note that. Thank you. Agenda item 3, do members agree that the minutes of the Planning Committee meeting held on the 14th of February be approved as a correct record? And do I have a proposer? Councillor Keane, and seconded, I've got Councillor Bright. Thank you. Do members agree? Thank you. I'm now going to hand over to the Planning Applications Manager, who will outline a point of information about item 4A and item 4I. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So regarding item 4A, Domus, at the meeting in January where this case was first heard, in a point of information at the top of that meeting, we updated our recommendation to alter condition 13 as published. However, in publishing the agenda for this meeting, that condition unfortunately wasn't updated as it was missed when republishing. So therefore, to confirm as we did at the beginning of the meeting in January, we are proposing a change to the published condition 13, specifically to allow 4 of the 5 second floor windows to be opening clear glazed Velux windows, with one north-facing side window serving the lounge to be obscure glazed, which would mean that condition 13 would now read that the first floor windows in the northern and southern elevations hereby approved should be provided with non-opening obscure glass to a minimum level of obscurity to conform with Pilkington glass level 4 or equivalent, and the second floor lounge window in the northern elevation shall be provided with obscure glass to a minimum level of obscurity to conform to Pilkington glass level 4 or equivalent, and all windows shall be installed as detailed in the condition prior to first occupation of the development and retained thereafter. So the recommended condition is updated in the officer recommendation. And on item 4I, which is the land rear to the rear of 67 Stone Road. The applicant has submitted an executed unilateral undertaking with land registry information subsequent to the publishing of the agenda, and that undertaking would secure the contribution to the SAMS plan to mitigate the impact of the development on the Thanet Coast Special Protection Area in the event that permission is granted, and therefore the second reason for refusal in the officer recommendation is overcome, and this is therefore removed from the recommendation to members. The application remains recommended for refusal on ground 1 in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So, just a reminder, any site visits will take place for committee members on the morning of Friday the 5th of April. And now we'll move on to agenda item 4A, Domus. Public speaking, I have, speaking against the application, Mr. Clark Smith. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm here to represent the households surrounding the property who have each been impacted by this building. We are asking for your help to rectify just 2 serious issues which have had the largest negative impact on us all. The first floor rear balcony, a wrought iron sloped railing with obscured glass was supposed to be implemented as privacy screens on the original plans. Rather than following the approved permission, the owners extended the walls by several metres at first floor level and called these new brick walls privacy screens. The large walls lead to a loss of light to Oakside's garden and living areas due to the significant increase in size of this structure. We would like the original plans to be adhered to and the first floor balcony brick walls to be replaced with the approved sloped wrought iron railings with obscured glass. The second floor rear roof balcony. The second floor balcony looks directly into all neighbouring properties. It includes no privacy screen and looks directly into young girls' bedrooms, private gardens and family living areas of 28 North Fallen Road to the rear. The second floor balcony is completely unnecessary, as there is already a first floor rear balcony which provides views to their garden. Moreover, there are multiple skylights and Velux windows, a large roof lantern and front windows, all providing natural light to the interior of the second floor. We find it unbelievable that a roof balcony was previously considered acceptable, as the difference in ground levels contributes to it looking directly into our home, and the distances between our properties is also now less than the approved planning report indicated. Hence, the balcony is even more imposing upon us. Local Plan Policy QD03 states that all new development should be compatible with neighbouring buildings and spaces and not lead to unacceptable living conditions through overlooking. This second floor balcony directly contravenes this planning policy, and due to the unacceptable living conditions for neighbouring families and loss of privacy, we request the council refuses retrospective planning permission until the second floor balcony roof balcony is removed. As a father of 2 young girls, it's my responsibility to provide them with a safe, private home for them to grow up in. And due to the actions of the owners of Domus, I'm currently unable to do this. We have been very patient with building works for over 3 years, as we have no issue with the house itself. We have each tried to resolve our issues directly with the owner, but despite the planning committee involvement and numerous objections, there has still been no compromise forthcoming on the owner's part. They seem unable or unwilling to introduce any measures to prevent overlooking into their neighbours' properties. We are now asking this planning committee to help and please restore our privacy and refuse planning permission for the second floor balcony. With regards to the first floor balcony, extended solid brick walls, these are a violation of the previously approved plans and also need to be removed. If these current plans are approved, it sets a precedent for owner developers to disregard plans that the council have approved and do what they please with scant regard to the privacy, amenity and living conditions of adjoining residential properties. We appreciate you taking this matter seriously and hope that with your help we can improve the living conditions of all neighbours and allow our children to grow up in safe and private homes.
Thank you. I will now hand over to the Principal Planning Officer to outline the report.
Thank you, Chair. This is the site here, outlined in red. It was brought before members in January, following which we carried out a site visit. So just to remind members, this is the site here in aerial view. This is the front elevation of the building. So the application is for the erection of the dwelling, retrospective application for the dwelling as it's shown here. to the front, the proposal is to increase this area here. So the original plan showed the central section setback, so it was in line with the two dormers, and now the change is that this now projects forward. There's also some changes to the designs of the fenestration. So within the centre here, there were French doors, and so there's also a few changes to the designs of the windows in terms of the sill height as well. This is then looking further to the left, so this is looking towards the neighbouring property North Fordham Heights, and then on the right hand side we have the neighbouring property Oakside, both of which we visited during the site visit. This is now from the rear garden looking towards the rear elevation of the building. So this is the first floor balcony, and we looked at the side privacy screens that existed. So since the site visit, there were a few discrepancies with the plan in terms of the actual intended height of the privacy screen. So amended plans were submitted which clarified the heights of the side privacy screens, and you'll see those shortly in the presentation. And then this is the other photo looking towards the other side of the rear elevation. So part of the amendment also was to increase the depth of the balcony to the centre of the building at first floor level. And again, there was a few changes to the fenestration. In terms of the balcony screening, the original was set further back because the balcony didn't extend over this part here, which has a roof lantern above it, so the screen was shorter, and the design of the screen also differed with metal balustrading and glazing, which is now, you can see, breeze block. So we visited inside the property and looked from the balcony. So this is the views taken from the first floor balcony looking towards the neighbouring properties. So this is looking towards number 28 North Fordham Road, and then this was looking towards Oakside, and then this is looking towards North Foreland Heights. And then from the second floor balcony, this is a view again to 28 North Foreland Road, and then again looking towards Oakside and looking towards looking towards North Foreland Heights. So again, when you see the plans, I'll go through the actual changes compared to what's already previously been approved, which is a material consideration in this application, and what's now proposed. The balconies at first and second floor level were previously approved, and it was considered that in terms of the overlooking aspects, that there was oblique angles to both neighbours to the side, and in terms of the neighbouring property to the rear, the distance was considered significant enough to prevent significant overlooking to that property. Now we then visited the neighbouring property, so this was then inside North Foreland Heights, looking back towards the application site. So this is the application property here, and this is the first floor balcony of that property. You can see the privacy screens in this location here. So the amended plans that have been submitted show the side privacy screens to retain at this height, so they're not going up any higher than this. And then this is now looking from Oakside towards the application property here. So again, in terms of this side privacy screen, it's much deeper than the original approval, so probably double the depth, because the previous application approved a balcony that finished at approximately this level here and didn't extend over the rest of the single storey elements. So this screen again is also changed in the design as well, going, as I mentioned earlier, from the metal and glazed screen to now the breeze block. And then again, this is a view further back from that garden looking towards the first floor balcony of the application property. Then we visited the property to the rear of the site. So this is from 28 North Foreland Road. So this is taken from their rear garden looking towards the application property in this location here. So you can see, because of the ground level difference, there's no views of the first floor balcony, but the concerns as raised by the neighbour are in relation to this balcony within the roof. And then we looked from their bedroom windows towards the site, and from bedroom windows you can see now partially the first floor balcony, and again you can see the second floor balcony. So part of the concern with the second floor balcony was about the balustrading and what was intended to be erected for the balustrading here. So part of the balustrading consists of part of the roof, but the plans that have now been submitted to clarify exactly what's going to happen show metal balustrading above the roof up to a height of 1.1 metre in that location here. So these are the plans. So this was a previously approved block plan for the site, and then this is the proposed block plan. So the block plan basically looks the same. The only real change to the footprint is that the basement level is extended, but that doesn't have any impact visually or on the neighbours. Otherwise, the building remains of the same footprint. This was the previously approved front elevation. So this is the street elevation, showing it in relation to both the adjacent neighbouring properties, and this is the proposed street elevation. And then just so you can see further detail, the front elevation again. So the front elevation, so the main changes here are the designs of the dormers at first floor level. Again, this central dormer was set back, and this section here was a balcony to the front of the property, and the proposal now shows this part actually extending out so that it actually falls in line with this front projection. So it is a deeper projection at roof level. And other changes are changes to the sill height of the ground floor windows, and again the French doors in the centre here have gone and been replaced with a window. So this is the proposed elevation, and again, so you can see with the French doors there, we now turn to this window. You can see the design of the dormers have changed in the roof, and then this part here now projects forward where the balcony was to fall in line with this front projection. And again, you can see at ground floor level, the sill heights have increased. This is the previously approved rear elevation. So you can see we have previously approved the balcony at first floor level and the balcony at second floor level within the roof space. This was approved with metal balustrading of the 1.1 metres. The amended plans show the area here which wasn't part of the balcony now as balcony. So this part here is extended and the central area has extended. So this is now the proposed plan. You can see now at roof level, in terms of that clarification on the balustrading, the 1.1 that you can see is the full height of the balustrading. So the floor level of the balcony is at this point here. So part of it is made up of the roof, and part of it is made up of the metal balustrading, going up to a maximum height of the 1.1 metres from the floor level of the balcony. And in terms of the clarification for the screening, for the first floor balcony, it's now 1.7 metres from the ground floor of the balcony on the sides with the breeze block rendered walls, and then 1.1 metre of the metal balustrading along the rear edge of the balcony. This was a previously approved side elevation that looks towards Oakside. So you can see the design of the privacy screen that was previously approved, and again you can see the depth as well of the previous balcony. So this was where the balcony ended, and this was the shape and design of the privacy screen. Also, just a note on this one again, looking at roof level to the front of the property, you can see the dormers where they were located, so the smaller dormers either side and then the larger central dormer, and then the balcony to the front. And then this is now the proposed scheme. So again, that area here now has been projected forward, so it falls in line with this front projection. And you can see now at the rear the depth of the privacy screen and the fact that now is a rendered wall to match the rest of the side elevation. This is the side elevation facing Northforeland Heights. So again, you can see at the rear the screen that was previously approved, and then now this is the proposed. So again, same situation with the breeze block wall to the rear, and again looking at the front projection at roof level that now extends and enlarges that space at roof level. The other change here is some changes to the windows. So some of the windows have been removed. So previously there was 5 windows at ground floor level, and 2 of those have removed. And again, one of them at first floor level was removed. But no additional openings have been created. In terms of the floor plans, these were the previously approved floor plans. So the areas to note are the balcony at first floor level on this slide here, and the fact that the central area was set back, and now the proposal you'll see on the next plan falls in line. So the balcony in this central point is much deeper. So this is now the proposed, so this is now the balcony area here. So you can see now how it extends round where the roof lantern was and the depth of it in this location here. And then the other point with the at roof level, so again, this was the previously approved plan at roof level. So in this location here, you can see that the central area was a balcony that, sorry, not a balcony, a dormer that followed the lines of the other two with the balcony projection to the front. Also at the rear, you'll see the second floor balcony. This was recessed and actually extended more into the building than the current one does. So it's actually, the proposed one is now actually shallower than the previously approved balcony, but otherwise is in the same location and the same width as the previous approval. So this, this is sorry, this is the proposed one. So this is now the depth of it. So you can see where it previously extended into the room, it's now set back in line. So this is shallower. And again, at the front here, you'll see this is where the projection is. So instead of being in line with the dormers at the front, it now projects further forward over the extension. And then just some section views. Again, the previously approved section and the proposed section. So as I mentioned, the previous consent is a material consideration in this application. The consideration for members is whether the changes that have been made to the application since the previous approval now cause harm, whether it's to the character and appearance of the area or to neighbouring living conditions. I'll just go back to the photos. So again, just to show you again the front of the elevation. So the consideration by officers is that whilst these changes have been made to the elevations, the area has such varied character that every property is different, and that the changes made would not significantly detract from the character and appearance of the area. So in terms of the design elements, it's considered to be acceptable. In terms of the impact on neighbouring occupiers, the main changes in terms of the balconies, as mentioned, both the first floor and second floor have previously been approved, so that relationship with neighbours in terms of overlooking has previously been approved. The balcony at second floor level, whilst it's appreciated from visiting the neighbouring property at the rear that they can see the balcony, unfortunately it's a distance of 36 metres, which is a distance that is usually considered to be an adequate distance to prevent significant overlooking. So in the past, usually when we look at them, we look at a rough distance of around 21 metres. In this case, we would be looking for more because the properties are much bigger and you would expect more distance between properties. But 36 metres is quite a bit further than a distance we would be likely to support at appeal if we were to refuse it on overlooking. So even though there's a ground level change and they would be able to see that dormer, we don't consider that would be result in significant harm, and it is the same as previously approved. At first floor level with the balcony in this location, a consideration is whether the increased depth and the solid design of the side boundaries, side screening, would actually impact on neighbours' light and outlook. We consider that, given the distance again and the relationship with the neighbours, that wouldn't result in significant harm. And in terms of the increased depth of this central balcony, because it's in the centre and not near either neighbour, it's not considered that also would result in significant harm. So overall, the application is recommended for approval on the basis that the previous application has been approved and that these amendments would not be significantly detrimental to the area or neighbouring occupiers. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I move on to the next bit that I need to read out from here, I just need to go back to something that was said at the beginning of the meeting. It does appear that there may be some recording or filming of the meeting going on from the gallery. That's not a problem, other than because obviously the meeting itself is being live streamed. However, from that point of view, I'm going to read out the rest of the original statement that I would have read out if that had been said yes at the beginning, which is that I would advise that if filming takes place, anyone in attendance in the public areas may have their image captured, and I would urge anyone filming proceedings to avoid filming members of the public, particularly if there are children present. Thank you. So, picking back up on the next part, I move that the officer's recommendation is adopted. Would the Vice Chair please second?
Seconded.
Thank you. And so do I have anyone wanting to speak? Councillor Moore, I had first, please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you for your presentation. I know this is quite emotive, and obviously your concerns are regarding overlooking. But I just need to clarify a couple of points, and that is, as you've already said, Emma, this was already passed. The balcony is passed, and we cannot refuse something which has been passed. That is set in stone. And the modifications that are being done are allowing the second floor balcony to be reduced back into the building, as I understand, and the offset of that was the front part of the building has been extended out. I can't see that we can refuse it on the overlooking from that balcony. The only concern that I do feel I have, but again, I was not possible to be on the site visit, so I wouldn't know, but you might better clarify. The original drawings with the formed shielding, which was wrought iron and frosted glass, that looked in keeping to the building. But now that it's square and mass, it looks overbearing to my point of view. And I just wonder, when the sun moves round, whether that casts shadows on the neighbouring properties or obscures their light. And if it had remained with the wrought iron and the frosted glass, that light would have still been able to permeate through. And I don't know whether that's a proviso or condition, but that's just my point of view for the committee. But I don't think technically we can refuse it because it's already been passed. But my only consideration would be those two brick walls. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Keane.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, having been on the site visit, then I'm very disappointed that the original was passed, because having been in the house at the rear, it very definitely does have overlooking from that development, from the top balcony. So I do understand the concerns about that, but I also accept that as it was passed with that, there isn't anything we can do about it. However, the balcony on the first floor, I do think the concrete ends are overbearing, and I also think that they will block light from the neighbouring gardens, and I would like to see them reverted back to the original plans, which I think would be more acceptable in terms of light and actually look a lot better as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bayford.
Thank you, Chair. I agree entirely with Councillor Moore's comments about the overlooking. I did attend the site visit, and to be honest, yes, the brick sidings to the balcony don't allow light in the same way as obscure glass would. I didn't, however, feel that there was any shadow cast by them. And in view of the size of the properties and the fact that they do provide greater privacy, I couldn't really see there was any harm. Thank you.
Councillor Rattigan.
Well, I was also on the site visit, and sorry.
It's all right. It's all right, Councillor Matterface. I actually said Councillor Rattigan, and you beat him to the microphone. I know.
Me, thank you. I was also on the site visit, and my concern is very much the first floor balcony. I thought it was very out of keeping. I thought it was too big. I think obscured glass, as was originally planned, would certainly give plenty of privacy. There's no shape to the block end to the balcony. whereas at least the original plan had a bit of shape, which is a bit more in keeping as we're, you know, sort of seaside location. The second floor balcony is much deeper set, but as has already been said, that was passed in the original approval, so we can't do much about that. But as I say, my concern was particularly the first floor balcony. I thought it was completely out of keeping. And having looked into the garden, that garden there, I feel it would, when the sun is at a certain height, coming from the south, it will definitely cut light off that garden, which would be a great shame. Thank you.
Councillor Rattigan, please.
Thank you very much. I won't go over all the ground that's already been covered. Regards to the brick wall, I think it's down to personal taste. And I could see obviously from the balcony to my left here, that's not a sort of frosted glass, and you can see directly. So someone sitting on that balcony, if you didn't have that there, they'd be looking straight on you. So, I mean, it didn't seem like there was no. It wouldn't take any light away. I think again, it's down to personal preference, and I'll be happy to support it.
Councillor Garner.
Thank you. Yeah, just a couple of things. I mean, I suppose in one way, we do have a bit of an advantage over the usual applications that come before us, because the applicant has already gone and built the changes, or made the majority of the changes, before we've actually had time to consider and approve them. So we can actually see what they're going to do, because they've done it. I find the change at the front obtrusive. It is out of character, I believe. It sticks out like a sore thumb. It's a shame about the second floor balcony, because, I mean, however far away it is overlooking. I mean, you can argue about whether it's significant or not, but it does overlook. And the first floor balcony, which is the main problem, I believe, people have already said the problems with that, and I think they are significant problems that I think we should seriously consider when we come to vote whether to approve or refuse. Because although we might argue about, and the second floor balcony has been approved, but we have to agree to it all to approve it, and if we don't agree with all of it, then we have to refuse it. I think there's no other options. We can't change it, I don't think. Thank you.
Councillor Rattigan again.
I can't. I'm a bit confused, Councillor Garner's comment on out of character, because I'm not trying to be sort of pedantic. Every house along there is completely different shape and different. I mean, there are some quite wacky ones, so I can't see it sort of being out of characters. And as Emma went up on the ladder. She was brave enough to go and take some pictures on there. And from that distance up there, I mean, you could say everyone then overlooks. So I don't see a problem.
Councillor Bright.
Yeah, thank you. I've got to agree with Councillor Matterface and Councillor Keane. I also went on the site visit, and I have an enormous amount of sympathy for the neighbours, because I do feel like the second floor balcony is excessive and it does overlook, but unfortunately it was previously approved. I don't know why. But in terms of the first floor balcony, I do think that the ends are obtrusive. They don't look very nice, and that wasn't what was approved. So I would like to see obscured glass and wrought iron railings. And I don't know whether there's any kind of neighbourly relations there, or if there's any chance that you could speak to them and maybe request they put wrought iron and frosted glass on the second floor balcony as well. But I think that's probably all you can do. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Wing.
Thank you. I mean, I agree with the balcony end, but it just frustrates me that we've got another retrospective planning application. I mean, in my mind, and maybe we need some more training on this, in my mind, you start a build and there's something structural that needs changing, rather than, well, actually, we're just going to increase the balcony a bit because we want a bit more outdoor space. And why don't we just change the front and go forward a bit, rather than something that's personal to you? So it does frustrate me that we're here again with a retrospective planning application where there isn't something that is so important that it needed to be retrospective. I mean, whatever way you look at that first floor balcony, it's almost doubled inside, so the scope of being able to overlook from an area has also increased. And I agree that it just looks like a complete sheer wall on that side, which is appropriate in some locations. Where I live, we've got a lot of that, but we're all closely packed together, so you expect that. Here we've got open views that are not hindered by anything else, so the overlooking is sort of made worse in that respect. So I'm frustrated that it's retrospective and it's cosmetic and increasing things rather than some sort of need because of a structural concern to make things safer.
Councillor Moore.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just for reference, the original application was passed by officers and not by committee, is that correct? And the second point's just gone out of my head, so I'll have to think about it and hopefully come back to you. But the first one was, obviously, it wasn't done by committee, it was done by officers. And so that's where we are with that. Thank you.
I've still got a few more. I've got Councillor Bayford next.
Thank you, Chair. Although it's irrelevant because it's already been passed, regard to the overlooking, we are talking about 36 metres, which is a long way. So I think these are huge properties. They are very, very different in style. And I feel that 36 metres is a long, long way to consider overlooking. Thank you.
Councillor Matterface.
I'm just picking up on Councillor Wing's point about the ends of the balconies, because we should think about not just the people living in this property, but the people next door who would be looking out on a brick. Okay, they're looking at the brick wall anyway, but they're looking at a brick wall which really comes out when they're anticipating having a clear or obscured glass end to the balcony. So there's an impact on them in terms of what they are looking at, which I think we should give some consideration to.
And I've got Councillor Garner next.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I just wanted to firstly thank Councillor Vratigan for putting me right on my views on whether it's out of keeping or not, and I'll take that on board. But I'd stick with my original statements about the first floor balcony. Thank you.
Councillor Moore, are you ready again?
Yes, thank you, Chair. My question actually is to the objectors. I read in one of the objections where it states that because of the overlooking, you're unable to have your curtains open because you feel the intrusion. So does that mean you don't have net curtains, or you have just blackout curtains?
Councillor Moore, that has to be a hypothetical question, because having spoken, anyone on as visitor speaking aren't able to speak or answer again. So
I'll retract that then.
In that case, Councillor Keane.
Thank you. I just wanted to come back on Councillor Bayford's point, because although the distance is large, having been in the house, I can only reiterate that there is significant overlooking in my view. Thank you.
Councillor Wing, did I see your hand go up again? Sorry, I thought I saw it a few minutes ago, that's all. And Councillor Matterface, did I see your... No? Okay. Do I have any other speakers? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So just to clarify, obviously the motion on the table is to approve. Just to come back on a point that Councillor Garner that you raised, if that motion to approve falls, then it would be for members to propose an alternative motion. Now that could be, I suppose, a number of different things. In one instance, it could be to refuse the application because there's an impact because of one specific element or all the specific elements that have been mentioned. Obviously, we would have views on what could be sustained, and obviously I can pick that up after the vote. The alternative would be if there was one particular element which was felt to be the harmful element, and that was a consensus amongst members, then obviously, as we've done a number of times, it could be deferred for amendments to that specific thing to show a change to it, and then come back to members next month. So there are options. It's not just a flat, it's got to be refused. It's up, members can defer to bring back if there was a discrete element, but that is obviously very dependent on getting a consensus amongst members.
Councillor Keane.
On that basis, then I would like to suggest that we defer, and my recommendation would be that the balcony materials at the end are changed.
Councillor Keane, the first thing we have to do is to refuse the motion that's on the table.
Sorry.
And then if that motion falls as it is, then we will have the option of coming back with an alternative motion.
Okay, sorry.
What I need to do is, unless there's anyone else who wants to add anything into the debate itself, then we need to vote on the motion that is on the table, and then we'll find out whether or not we've got a second motion or not. Councillor Bright?
Just to clarify, are we able to put any conditions in at all about the second floor balcony at this stage, or is that absolutely not on the table?
So the balcony has been approved in that location. Obviously, we've explained what the differences are. In terms of additional conditions, it would certainly be our view that they would be unreasonable on the basis that there is a clear fallback of what has been approved. So we would be imposing something as a council that obviously has previously been deemed acceptable, and it would be considered unreasonable if that was appealed. So it's not, it would only be to change the specific element that has changed on that balcony, which obviously from the main issue is the presence of the balcony, and that obviously isn't going to change.
Okay, in that case, I'd like to put the officer's recommendation for approval to the vote. Does anyone want to vote in favour of approval? Thank you. And those against? So the motion as it stands has fallen. Oh, were there any abstentions? So the motion as it stands has fallen, and we will now come back. Yes, thank you.
So it's not for me to propose a motion, but I think the one thing I would summarise from the debate is that in terms of a consensus view, the predominant issue is the walls of that first floor balcony on either side. In terms of obviously returning it to a screen, which would be potentially similarly designed, there was the sort of wrought iron design with screens, there would obviously be the option for members to defer back to officers to seek the amendments to show screens rather than walls, and then for that to be returned to members to make a decision on the basis of those plans. So that would be an option, one of the options that's available for members. Obviously there is the option of a different motion if so wished.
Does anyone want to propose the motion as just suggested? Yes, so I'm going to say Councillor Keane and seconded by Councillor Matterface. Thank you. So, any comments on that, Councillor Garner?
Yeah, a comment was, the first floor balcony has changed not just in the terms of the screening, has it, but in terms of the size as well. So I'm not sure, and I wasn't particularly happy with the quite major size extension of the balcony, and whether or not we should be returning it to what was already previously approved for a first floor balcony.
So I suppose from, again, an officer perspective would be that in terms of the impact of a balcony, however long it is about whether or not you can directly overlook into neighbours' gardens, and obviously that's why the screening would be present. Now, I think the concern certainly that I've heard from members relates to, I suppose, two elements. One is the loss of light from it being a solid form as it is, as constructed on site, but also that creates an obtrusive impact, a sort of sense of enclosure on the neighbouring properties. If it's, I suppose, an option of replacing it sort of as with the current depth with a the screening as shown, or effectively actually requiring the balcony is reduced to the original depth. So I suppose that is a point of clarification. I mean, as I outlined, it wouldn't be the reduction of the depth of the balcony. It would be actually that the wall itself is replaced with screening that would be obscure glazed. So it would prevent any overlooking directly, but also it would allow, I suppose, a lightened sense rather than the breeze block effectively at the moment. So as that's the motion that's been seconded, currently that's the motion that's on the table. If obviously members feel like the depth of the balcony is a problem, then they could vote the motion down, and then we go a new motion to change both elements, or a different motion.
So, Councillor Moore, did you want to come in? No. In that case, so the motion that we have on the table is just to come back to committee with revision of the screening, which was what we've had, and it is only that. So, who is in favour of that motion? And those against? Any abstentions? And so that's carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So just to confirm, that will be brought back to members prior to a decision being made, so you will see it again, just to confirm that. Thanks.
Thank you. So going on to the agenda item 4B, 38 Effingham Street, Ramsgate. Public speaking, I have speaking in favour of the application. Mr Sims, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. The drawings and the design access statement should explain the proposal, but I thought it would be useful to summarise certain aspects.
Sorry, can I just ask you to stop a moment? I need to, my apologies, you will get a start again on the clock. Councillor Garner, this was your declaration of interest, so I actually have to move you from where you're sitting over into the bit in the middle. Thank you. Sorry, start again, please. Thank you.
No problem, thank you. I was just explaining that the drawings and the design access statement should explain the proposal, but I thought it would be useful to summarise some of the aspects of the proposal. The aim of the project is to gain approval for a change of use from a 3-storey house to a house of multiple occupancy. The existing house is currently a 5-bedroom family house. In the proposal, the property would become a 6-bedroom house of multiple occupancy, meaning that the number of bedrooms and therefore number of persons would only increase by 1. The design maximises the available capacity of every room throughout the house, but we've worked with the relevant space standards, including Thanet's District Council guidelines for houses of multiple occupancy. Just to highlight our client, therefore the applicant is an experienced landlord who manages several HMOs in heritage properties in the area in Ramsgate. They specialise in high quality accommodation in prime locations for young professionals, and those properties are presented to an exceptionally high standard. The layout has been designed with reference to the national standards and to the guidelines, as I've already said. The building at number 38 will remain completely unchanged externally. Similarly, the listed building next door will remain unchanged as a result of the application being made. The proposal requires minor amendments to the internal studwork partitions at number 38, meaning that the fabric of the existing building and also the listed building next door and the setting of the listed building next door will be unaffected in terms of appearance and material change. The design ensures that adequate space in the rear garden has been provided for amenity, ensuring that the front of the property won't become a congregation space or anything similar. There will be no alterations to the building that will affect the privacy of neighbouring properties. Furthermore, there will be no other alterations that would in any way affect the streetscape. In terms of parking and provision for such, the majority of the tenants that our clients have in their properties are usually single professional people who use public transport or use cycles. The house is located in a suitably central location in close proximity to buses and trains, but as such we've provided a dedicated secure cycle storage in the bottom of the building, so out of sight for at least 10 cycle spaces. That's it, thank you very much.
Thank you. Speaking under Council Rule 20.1, Councillor Garner, who is speaking on behalf of Councillor Austin. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Councillor Austin asked for this application to be brought to committee in the hope of reflecting the concerns of Ramsgate Town Council, both as the minor authority but also as a neighbour, given their ownership of Radford House, the old fire station just down the road. Effingham Street is a busy, historically interesting street in the conservation area right in the town centre in Ramsgate, where properties sit close together and inevitably noise carries between adjoining buildings. The flying freehold layout of this building with its neighbour makes it particularly likely that there will be serious impact from noise from this multi-occupation property on the neighbours at number 36. RTC members and the Heritage and Design Forum all felt this scheme was overcrowded, particularly given the likelihood that 6 nominal occupants will almost certainly mean, in practice, up to 6 couples or up to 12 individuals. They are puzzled as to why the committee cannot take proper cognizance of this particular reality of life and instead must continue to pretend that only single individuals of monkish habits will ever occupy an HMO. The Town Council, I wish I'd written this. The Town Council is pleased to see the original proposals for an obtrusive waste storage area at the front of the property have been abandoned, but they are not confident that the alternative arrangement suggested will be effective, risking further trouble with waste management in a street that already suffers badly from wind-blown litter. They also have no confidence that the proposed cycle storage in the basement will work and feel it is likely that bicycles, if in use, will end up being attached to the front railings, adding street clutter and detracting from the appearance of the conservation area. They recognise that these are relatively minor considerations in the greater scheme of things, but had hoped that conditions might have been imposed to reduce the negative impacts we have outlined. Sadly, every time we ignore small considerations of this kind and approve another application, we contribute further to a declining spiral in our conservation areas.
Thank you. I will now hand over to the Principal Planning Officer to outline the report.
Thank you, Chair. This is the site in this location here outlined in red. So this is Effingham Street. Opposite is Cavendish Place. To the rear of the site, Ramsgate Library. So you can see it's a terraced property. And then this is an aerial view of the property. So it's also got quite a deep garden to the rear. And then this is the property in this location here. And then here is the front of the property. So the site does lie within the conservation area, but the proposal involves no external changes to the property. The front railings are to be retained as they are. The proposal originally included a timber bin storage area to the front of the site, but that's now been removed from the scheme because it was felt that that would actually have more visual impact than if it was just to remain as the separate bins, which is characteristic of the properties in this area where they would have bins stored to the front of the property. So this is again a further another view of the building. So you can see the 3-storey building and then just the neighbouring properties on this side. And then you can see what was mentioned about the relationship with the neighbour. So the neighbour is the pink door here, but this property actually extends over. So there is more of a relationship between this property and the neighbour. And the neighbour is also a listed building as well. So this is again the view from this side. So the actual application property is from this point here to here. So it's currently a 5-bedroom dwelling. The proposal originally submitted was a change of use to a 7 bed HMO, but that has been amended, and this application is now for a 6-bed HMO. So again, there's the property there in the street. So you can see it's a edge of centre site really. It's all quite high density in this location. Properties are generally quite close to the road with quite small frontages. And this is just a block plan showing the site. So again, no external changes really, but just showing the depth of the garden that would serve the HMO. And then these are the elevations. So each slide, I've got on the floor plans, I've got the existing, originally submitted and proposed, just so you can see the difference between them. So in terms of the actual elevations, there's no real change. So these are the existing front and rear elevations, and these are the proposed front and rear elevations. So absolutely no change at all to those. But in terms of the actual floor plans, so the existing basement plan is on the left here. The proposed was for the basement now to provide the cycle storage space, as you can see on the right-hand side of this. Then on the left-hand side is the existing layout of the property as a dwelling. So it would have had the lounge area to the front and quite a narrow kitchen diner area at the rear. Then the centre layout just shows what was submitted when it was originally submitted for the 7-bed HMO. So concern was raised in terms of fire safety and the internal staircase not being separated off from the living area. And so you can see on the right hand side the proposal now has changed that communal space around to provide that internal wall and provide separation from the staircase to the living space. So the right hand side one is what's now proposed, which shows a kitchen in this location here and a lounge area at the rear. So the main change you can see from the existing layout is that the front of the property now becomes a bedroom. So this was again originally the lounge, and now there's a bedroom at ground floor level at the front with an ensuite. At first floor level, the left hand side again is the existing. The centre was the originally submitted, which showed 2 bedrooms to the front, so that area is subdivided to create 2 rooms. But concerns were received from our housing team in terms of who look at licensing for HMOs of 3 storeys, and concern was raised with the number of people that would be in the building and the number of kitchens and bathrooms, and as a result the bedroom has been removed, and the right hand side is now the proposed scheme, which shows a large bedroom to the front with an ensuite, some separate bathroom areas to the centre, and another bedroom to the rear. And then the second floor plan, again, the left-hand slide shows the existing layout, which is 3 bedrooms at the second floor level, and this basically remains the same as part of the proposal. So these, again, are 3 bedrooms at second floor level. And then just the roof plan, although, again, nothing has changed. And this is just showing what was submitted to the frontage originally. So as part of the original submission, they did look to propose a timber structure to enclose the refuse store, but it was felt that that would actually look more obtrusive in the street. And so the current proposal has removed that, and it's just showing that there would just basically be the wheelie bins to the frontage with the existing railings retained to the front, which is more in keeping with the conservation area to retain these rather than try and create a higher screen that would hide the bins. So the main consideration with this application is looking at policy HO19 of the Thanet local plan. The main considerations under that policy are the impact on living conditions, the intensification of the use and arrangements for car parking and refuse storage as part of the proposal. So a number of objections have been received from neighbouring occupiers. Obviously the existing situation is it is a 5-bed dwelling, only increasing by 1 bedroom. Original application was for a sui generis use. It's now, from changing to 6 beds, changed into a C4 use. It's very difficult for us to justify that there will be significant impact to neighbouring amenity as a result of this 1 additional bedroom being added to the property. No additional windows or anything are being added, or balcony areas. So whilst you through a HMO use there's the potentially some intensification of use because of the way in which it's used, in terms of the number of rooms, it's not significantly higher that we could argue that there would be a significant increase in amenity above that would exist from an existing dwelling. So the impact on neighbours is considered to be acceptable. In terms of the intensification of use, for that we look at whether there are any other HMOs within 100 metres of the site. Housing have confirmed that there are no licensed HMOs within 100 metres of the site, so we cannot argue that this would result in intensification of HMO use in the area. In terms of parking, the site doesn't have any off-street parking, but it is an edge of centre site. It's sustainably located, and again, the addition of one bedroom would not be enough for us to argue there's a highway safety impact. And in terms of the refuse storage, as mentioned, the existing dwelling already have wheelie bins to the front of the property. Again, the additional one bedroom would not significantly increase the amount of refuse storage that would be required to the front. And again, this is no different really to what currently exists. And there's nothing really that we can suggest that they could do to really mitigate the impact without there being potentially more harm on the conservation area. So it is recommended for approval. There's a condition that is proposed that does restrict the use of the building to 6 people, and therefore it's considered that with that condition, along with the condition for refuse storage and the cycle storage as well, that the scheme is acceptable. So yes, recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. I move that the officer's recommendation is adopted. Would the Vice Chair please second?
Seconded.
Thank you. And do I have anyone wanting to speak? Councillor Wing.
I mean, this is the second meeting, the last planning meeting we had Queen Street, which I believe is within 100 metres of that site. It hasn't yet applied for a licence, Queen Street, that Queen Street one. I actually approached the HMO officer, and that resident has no licence at Queen Street, so it wouldn't come up on our system. But I'm absolutely certain that location is within 100 metres of Effingham Street. I've just tried to
Councillor Wing, if I can actually answer that, I did actually check that. That was my very first question because I remembered that, and I did get that checked, and it is actually outside. It's 200 metres if you walk, and it's 150 as the crow flies. I thought it felt closer than that.
It does feel closer than that. But, you know, again, it's the second meeting where we've got another HMO arriving in the town centre in Ramsgate. That same meeting we had another HMO in Broadstairs. That, you know, we've stopped the licences in Margate, obviously for certain reasons. I don't believe on that street that most people keep their wheelie bins in the front garden. I don't think that's true. So I find that next to listed buildings quite difficult to accept on a significant street of heritage. I don't really buy the Radford House because there's a change of use obviously being proposed there. So, you know, having Radford House I don't think is a valid reason to stop a HMO. I'm also a bit concerned about how the impact on the neighbours, given that the front door and part of that house sits under that property. So is it just the front door of the neighbouring property that sits under there, or does that go further back so it's part of a living room or a kitchen? No, I'm continuing, but I would like that question answered because we've now got a house with more adults. More adults have potentially got more noise, there's more movement going on. So there is possibly a noise impact on that piece of the house that sits under that part of the HMO. We've got a cycle store for 10 bikes, and yet this is a HMO with 6 bedrooms. You know we can't stop people having partners. So the capacity of that house could be 12 adults. And it looks as if they are planning to have at least 10 adults, because otherwise why would you have a cycle store for 10 bikes? I also think the lounge area is way too small. So I think that I believe that personally, if I was living in that house, the kitchen's too small for 6 adults, the lounge area is too small for adults, and that maybe that floor where the kitchen and the kitchen and lounges needs to be the complete living space, and that one bedroom needs to be knocked out of that. As Councillor Peter Campbell would have said, we are building the future slums, I'm afraid. I know we have a need for one bedroom accommodation, but I just think to add that 6th bedroom is just tipping it over the edge for me and making it a bit like a place where you're stuck in your bedroom because the communal areas are simply not big enough. Thank you.
Just coming back on that overhanging point, I mean, looking at the plans, it would appear that it's this section on the far left that is just the area that's overhanging. So in terms of the difference between the existing situation and proposed, again, that's the area where originally it was proposed with the 2 bedrooms in this location, but then one was removed. So this now is a single bedroom. So it's a single bedroom now, it's proposed as a single bedroom. So in terms of the impact, it's probably unlikely there would be anything more because it's just a bedroom for a single person.
Right, Councillor Matterface.
Just picking up Councillor Wing's point, could we have some idea of the size of the kitchen, please? Could you give us, because 6 adults using a kitchen, presumably one fridge isn't going to do for 6. So, you know, I'm just thinking about white goods in there for 6 people. Is there going to be any eating space, any dining facilities, or are they going to take their meals back to their rooms or what? So if we had some idea of dimensions of the kitchen, I'd be quite...
I believe on the plans it has, so I'm trying to squint at it, and I didn't bring this plan with me annoyingly, but it states it's 12 square metres for this kitchen. So in terms of the layout, from what I can see on the plans, it's showing the units on the right-hand side, so it's like a galley kitchen running along here with the units on the right, and then it would go into this area at the rear, which would be a sitting area. So yeah, there's no suggestion on the plans of space for a table and chairs, which I think is what you're asking. But yeah, there's just a deep kitchen with space for cupboards and units along this right hand side here. But there's no, I think housing have looked at this, and I do think they do have some minimum space standards for particular rooms, and they've not objected to the layout. I mean, the latest comment from them is they have no objections.
Are there any requirements? Because I thought I read somewhere that if there's 5 or more people, there has to be more kitchen facilities. Ian's nodding. So this is for 6, so we need more kitchen space, presumably.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, yes, the original comment from housing was on when it was 7 bedrooms, and there was a comment from them, yes, saying that there should be 1 kitchen for 5 people. Obviously, it's now gone to 6 bedrooms, and they've raised no objections. But looking at it, the number of kitchens hasn't increased. I'm not sure, but I don't know if you know.
If they said, if it says 5 people, more than 5, we need more than 1 kitchen.
Well, it's because the further comment, which is the final comment from has basically looked at, and you can see it on these plans, is because the size of the kitchen has increased, and that's why there's a delineation. But there's basically, it shows that there are actually 2 lots of each sort of thing that you would get in a kitchen. So effectively, you could have 2 people cooking at the same time. So if you look, sorry to borrow Emma's mouse, there we go. So you can see there's an actual sort of wall insert that's been delineated. So you've got 1 lot of kitchen facilities and another lot of kitchen facilities as well, which is why, in terms of a licence from an HMO perspective, it's why it's been considered acceptable, because it's about how many facilities you have. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a discrete room here and a discrete room here. It's about the number of facilities, and the space.
There's still no dining.
It's only the areas that you can see, obviously, at the rear, where obviously previously it was shown that there was going to be some dining space there when there was a living room further forward, but obviously that's what's changed in the proposal.
Thank you. I have Councillor Bayford next.
Thank you, Chair. Once again, I cannot emphasise enough the need we have for HMOs, particularly for professional people who we need to attract to the area. This proposal has no external changes, so it's much more in keeping with the conservation area than the previous application. There's a cycle store. We can't speculate on how many people will occupy the units. This could be said about the original 5-bedroom house, and I very much support this application.
Councillor Rattigan.
Whilst I've never really liked HMOs, I don't think it's a sign of the times that actually there is a great need, because property being so expensive, and it's only sort of the only opportunity for someone to be able to have a home. So and I agree with my colleagues. There is small, but I mean it's down to, again, you can't really sort of do much more to it, but I don't see any grounds for refusal.
Councillor Wing?
I just wanted to go back to the kitchen, because on the original plans, the kitchen had a window on the side, I think, and now the kitchen's got no window at all. And I thought there was some sort of guidance from building regs that there had to be. I know there's certain rooms that have to have windows within them. I think one is bedrooms. But I just think if that whole ground floor where the kitchen is could be better laid out, and a bedroom removed to go back to a 5-bedroomed property with proper communal area that would fit the needs of between 5 and 10 people, then it would sit much better with me. We can't have professional people who would likely to all come home at the same time, possibly all be cooking in the kitchen, and they've got to go back to their bedrooms to eat. I just don't think we should be asking people to live this way.
Councillor Makinson.
Hi. This is a road I know quite well because I walk down it nearly every day or up it. I would say that bins are kept in the front garden, definitely. Front gardens. They're not changing the appearance of this, so I will support it. I don't think we can object to it just on the basis that it's housing a number of people, and we definitely need housing for single people. And in the town centre would be great. And that's all.
Thank you. Councillor Boyd.
I can't remember if all of the rooms were going to be en suite. Can you clarify?
Ground floor level, this is the bedroom here with the ensuite at the back, and then first floor level, again the plan on the right hand side, so the front bedroom has the ensuite here, the back bedroom has an ensuite here, and then there's another 2 communal bathrooms in this location. And then at second floor level, there is there's an ensuite at the back for the back bedroom. But then the front 2 don't have en suites, but then there's a shared communal bathroom at this floor as well. So they all have en suites other than the front 2, and then there's that communal bathroom plus 2 other communal bathrooms at first floor level.
Councillor Bayford.
Thank you, Chair. I think we need to we need to remember that HMOs offer, the purpose of an HMO is to offer inexpensive housing. Of course, it must meet the requisite dimensions and requirements, but beyond that, people can't expect sheer luxury. They get what they pay for, and I think this is what we need. So I very much want to support this application.
Councillor Matterface, did I see? No? Then Councillor Wing.
Come back on that. I mean, I'm not against this development. I just think that we should be, as a part of your living space, you should have somewhere to sit down and eat your food. And I don't think that is asking for something exceptional for people who spent a full day at work, working really hard. I mean, removing a bedroom, the only thing it's going to do is reduce profits for the developer.
Councillor Bright.
Yeah, thank you. I keep changing my mind on this one because I think everyone's made really good points. I think for me, I do agree actually with Councillor Wing. I feel like it isn't enough living space for the residents there. I don't think it's fair. It does remind me of a student house. And actually student houses that I stayed in had more living space than that one. So I just think to remove 1 bedroom, I think would just makes a lot of sense for much nicer living accommodation. Thank you.
Thank you. I try not to comment too often, but I actually would pick up, again, what Councillor Bright and Councillor Wing have just said. There is actually research evidence that suggests that being able to sit down and eat your meal at a proper table actually helps to reduce obesity. So I too have been fluctuating in my thoughts. But does anyone else want to speak now, because we are about to go to the vote? Okay, who would like to vote in favour, please? And those against? Any abstentions? So that's lost. I'll hand over to the Planning Applications Manager.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I think there's consensus in terms of the standard of the accommodation, which is covered by sort of a general planning principles in QDO 2 and QDO 3. The issue seems to be with regards to the ground floor, and specifically in terms of the lack of communal sort of eating and dining space, which obviously previously was provided on the proposal. In terms of a motion to potentially move, it would be, I wouldn't suggest necessarily that it's something that couldn't be attempted to be overcome through amendments, and therefore I would suggest that maybe this is one to defer, similar to the last one, defer back to officers to seek a reduction in the number of bedrooms by one. In terms of the detail of that, and this wouldn't be part of that motion, but it seems like the front bedroom, effectively, if that was changed back to a living room as it is now, with then the ability to then have that area at the rear as it was, that's rear of the kitchen, to be a dining area, would make sense, rather than obviously changing around any of the bedrooms upstairs. So therefore, a suggested motion would be to defer back to officers to seek a reduction in the number of bedrooms and then to bring back to members at a subsequent meeting. Obviously, if that's not successful, then we would have to bring it back to members anyway for a subsequent decision.
Councillor Wing?
It's good to know that this is going to be managed by somebody who's experienced with HMOs, and I think normally we're moaning about the number of WCs at toilets and shower facilities, and it does seem that there is an adequate number of both ensuite and shared shower facilities. So it is just that communal living space, and it's also well known through research that your bedroom should be a place where you sleep, and you should be doing your eating and other stuff somewhere else.
Councillor Moore, did you want to speak?
I was only going to be proposing what Mr Livingston put forward.
Perfect, thank you very much. And Councillor Matterface seconded. So in that case, can I have a vote on the new motion, please? Those in favour? Anyone against? And no abstentions. So that is now carried. Thank you. Yes, sorry. Yes, you can come back now, Councillor Garner. Thank you. Okay, so item 4I, land to the rear of 67 Stone Road. For public speaking, I have Mrs Malloy, and you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I would first like just to add some information regarding our application. The site has a lengthy planning history, and you'll see from the documentation that we've addressed the issues highlighted in every delegated committee and pre-application reports we have received. In fact, you will see that we've scaled the property down from a 2-storey to a single-storey shallowed pitch roof dwelling. This will have less impact on the openness of the local amenity, as confirmed by the planning officer following the removal of the term within the latest report. You will see our proposal is respectful of the amenity enjoyed by our neighbouring buildings, and being previously developed land in an urban area occupied by dilapidated garage, it would make the perfect sustainable site for a modest residential development like the one we are proposing. As I'm sure you're aware, this would agree with the government line of thought, as they are in the process of further updating the MPPF to be more in favour towards residential developments on previously developed land and brownfield sites, rather than developments that would chip away at our green spaces. Therefore, we think our small development would bring forward public benefits, including improvement to the area and providing much needed residential development, where the council is still not able to quite meet its housing provision. As you are all aware, our agents have brought your attention to a recently approved application on Queen's Avenue in the next road, and only some 100 metres away from our proposed site. This approved application demonstrates very similar characteristics to our proposal, involving the demolition of a garage structure consisting of 2 garages and a construction of a single 2-storey dwelling on a very narrow site. Ultimately, the end goal for us is to be able to develop this site for myself and my husband so we can live in the area I grew up in and be able to care for the site. Should things be forced to remain in this present state, it will be harder and harder to do that and maintain what is existing on the site due to its condition. Although the officer's report references what a previous inspector had considered, in that the existing garage and state of the site does not cause a perception of permanent harm, the planning statement submitted in support of the application demonstrates that it has been like this for at least the past 16 years, since 2008. We really hope that this additional information we have circulated was of help, and we just thank you for this opportunity to address the committee.
Thank you. Speaking against the application, Mrs. Rodriguez. 3 minutes.
Good evening, members. I'm Victoria Rodriguez and I live at 67 Stone Road in Broadstairs. I'll be expressing my concerns regarding the proposed planning project, representing not only my family but our neighbours at 10 and 12 Castle Avenue, who also share a boundary with the plot. After thoroughly reviewing the details of the proposal and considering previous appeals from 2008 and 2021, it is evident that the concerns raised then are still very relevant today. While I understand considerations have been made to slightly shift the dwelling within the plot itself, the size of the plot cannot be altered. Castle Avenue is characterised predominantly by bungalows and chalet bungalows on its eastern side, as clearly shown in the street scene. In light of Thanet Council Planning Policy QD02, it is apparent that the proposed construction is not well designed and does not complement or enhance the existing character of the area. If approved, this dwelling would disrupt the visual landscape of the chessboard area and detract from its inherent charm. One of the primary concerns is the significant loss of privacy for our family and the families of neighbouring properties. In relation to our home, the position of the proposed dwelling would sit at a higher elevation due to the slope of the land. The overbearing A-frame design of the structure would tower above all our properties, infringing upon our privacy and diminishing our outlook. This intrusion into our privacy extends to our bedroom on the first floor and dining area beneath. Additionally, the proximity of the proposed dwellings to 10 and 12 Castle raises serious concerns about potential loss of daylight, sunlight and space, again pertaining to main living areas, without any consideration for serious structural issues in the future, such as underpinning. In contrast, 67 Stone Road was originally situated within its plot, which is now the proposed planning site, to maximise privacy and living space. The multi-level design ensures that adequate distance is maintained from neighbouring structures, allowing for a comfortable and balanced living environment. Furthermore, allowing this proposal to move forward would surely set a precedent for any small parcel of land to be built upon, contributing to overcrowding, cramming, and diminishing the local beauty and openness of the area. In conclusion, I urge the Planning Committee to carefully consider the objections raised by myself and my neighbours regarding the proposed construction. It is imperative that any development in our neighbourhood respects the established character and integrity of the area, looking ahead for generations. I do hope you will support your office's recommendation to refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now hand over to the Planning Applications Manager to outline the report.
Thank you, Chair. So the application is for the erection of a single-storey detached two-bed dwelling. So it's the rear of 67 Stone Road. So the site itself fronts Castle Avenue. So the site is outlined in red. You can see the footprint of the existing garage, which we'll have a little look at. So this is an aerial view. The garage that's on the site at the moment is in the centre of the screen where the mouse is circling. And then this is an isometric view from Google, just showing the 3D, showing the dwelling next door, number 12, then to the right-hand side, number 10, and then the site is in the centre here with the garage. So again, some views from Street View, just showing the garage itself in situ, so again those two properties either side, and then a view from the other angle, just showing the existing roof that you can see from the elevated view from the Google Street View van, and then 12 and 10 either side. So going sort of slightly closer, you can see here the garage that's on the site at the moment. And then looking then to the right-hand side at number 10. So the window that you can see here is serving the garage of the neighbouring property. So you can see it in a bit more detail there, so it's obscure glazed. And then this is standing where you see next to the window in the neighbouring property and looking back towards the property at Stone Road, that's 67. On the other side, you can see there are side windows along on the boundary with the plot. And then these windows that are present, so these serve a kitchen as well as bathrooms, and we'll talk about the impact on the neighbours in a little bit, but there is extensive history which has looked at the relationship with the neighbouring properties, so we can talk about that in a bit. And then this is just at the rear garden. So to the point that's been raised, there is a level change on this site, so it drops away as you face down towards Stone Road, and you'll see that in the sections of the proposed dwelling. So some information has been provided by the applicant. This is just a view of Castle Avenue. So this is an appraisal that's been done about the scale of the dwellings in Castle Avenue. So the site is outlined in red. So the blue and darker blue properties are a combination of either single-storey bungalows or chalet bungalows, with the purple properties being two-storey. The garages are in orange. So it is predominantly single-storey properties that are present along this stretch. So this is the proposal that was previously refused by the council. So this was an application that ended up being appealed following the refusal. So the inspector's decision, which is talked about in the report, I'll just take some parts from it, looked at the relationship with this proposal and the adjacent neighbouring properties. To quote, it states that whilst the plot here is the same width as in Stone Road, the surrounding built form is different. To the left, a wide bungalow with a low roof slope from side to side and having a side elevation close to the boundary with the site, with windows giving onto a pathway. The plot width equates to that of both semi-detached dwellings on Stone Road. A similar arrangement is in place to the right, where there is a chalet bungalow with rooms in the roof and a low garage abutting the boundary with the site, in total occupying a greater width than the individual frontage plots on the lower road. That rhythm of low dwellings and intervening garages forms a distinct feature of the street scene and sets the character and appearance of this road apart from that on Stone Road. In terms of this proposal and the design of it, in paragraph 12 of the inspector's decision, it states that the proposed new dwelling would appear out of place and uncharacteristically cramped on its site when seen in relation to its neighbours and the wider street scene. Although the garage presently on site is described as dilapidated by the officer, and that appears still an accurate description, and the overgrown nature of the site detracts, it is one of a number of flat roof structures on this frontage, and notwithstanding its condition, does not cause real detriment or a perception of permanent harm. The appeal proposal would not be of the same standard of design sought in local policies and the framework previously cited. So just to show the elevations of that previous proposal, you can see it's a narrow building, and then you've got the rear elevation and then the other side elevation. So in terms of this proposal, so there have been changes that have been made. You've got this site plan which shows there are 2 vehicular parking spaces at the front. You can then see that the actual front elevation of the property is set back slightly from the bungalows either side. So you can see that there is it's a sort of long property that is longer in depth than the neighbouring property number 10. And there is also, you can see a line through the site which denotes the change in level, which we'll look at on the side section. And you've got a garden and bin and cycle store at the rear. So this is the ground floor plan. So the front elevation fronting Castle Avenue is at the bottom of the screen for the left-hand diagram. So you can see you've got a bedroom at the front, a bedroom at the side with windows facing towards the neighbour, and then you've got a lounge and kitchen at the rear. So you can see there's actually a wall which wraps around the front, which you'll see on the elevations as well. And then you've got the roof plan, so you can see they've got Velux windows at various points through the building. So on the left-hand side is the front elevation of the building. So it's cedar clad, different colours, as you can see here. So then you've got the side elevation, so you can see that the step that I mentioned in terms of the change in levels that's shown, and then the other side elevation, which is the north elevation, and then that drops down, and then you've got the rear elevation where you've got the glazing which was serving the lounge. So in terms of the street scene, so this is showing the width of the plot is about 7 metres and 1 centimetre. You've then got the distance between the dwelling on the left-hand side, which is number 12, and then there's a distance, a small distance of 40 centimetres between the garage of the neighbouring property, number 10, and the property. So officers consider that there is obviously an extensive planning history looking at trying to put a dwelling on this site, and along this road there's historically a number of the dwellings on Stone Road had gardens that went all the way back and fronted onto Castle Avenue, and over the years from 50s onwards there have been a number of bungalow developments, including the chalet bungalow, well, the bungalow next door, where gardens have been grouped together and then developed subsequently for bungalows over those years. In this instance, it is considered that the width of the plot and then what ensues out from that when designing the proposal is out of character with the pattern of development, and you know it does lead to a relationship with both the neighbouring properties but also the wider character of the area that would appear out of character. Now, the appearance has changed, and it's obviously the scale has dropped from the appeal proposal, and obviously it has been designed to look a bit more akin to an outbuilding. Obviously there is a garage on the site at the moment. Our view is that it is still apparent as a dwelling. You will have a level of activity, you will have a front door. There is, whilst it's obviously, sorry if I just click on, whilst you can see the elevation sort of behind the wall is the lower image there, you will be able to see the window and the front door when obviously walking past the property. It will obviously, I assume, would have an indication that it's going to be 11A, and obviously it would have the parking, so it will have a level of activity over and above what you would expect to see as an outbuilding, and we think it would appear as a dwelling. It obviously has got a different sort of materials of design, but the key issue is the smaller width with the deeper footprint that to get a dwelling of size to hit the space standards you then need, and that would appear out of character and incongruous in the area. Now, this image that's at the bottom here is showing a sort of a collection of lines. The red line that's shown here is showing as if a 2.5 metre garage was erected on the site under permitted development rights, and then there's the pre-app sort of a turquoise colour which shows a different design which came in, which obviously hasn't been pursued, and then the blue line shows the appeal proposal that we looked at. In terms of a PD fallback, the site isn't related to a residential dwelling, it's been subdivided, so in terms of permitted development on the site there isn't necessarily any. Obviously if it was assimilated back into a residential property and there was a change of use of land, then potentially PD rights would exist. However, it would still not necessarily result in a dwelling that is as high as what's being proposed, as you can see from that. So in our view there is limited weight to be given to any fallback for permitted development. In terms of the comparison with other sites, this is something that obviously has been raised with members subsequent to the publishing of the agenda. The image on the top of the screen is the width of this plot, and submitted by the applicant, the site to the bottom of the screen is a development of Queen's Avenue. So one of the key differences between that site and this site is the context in officers' view. That comes down to the fact that the plot width is approximately around half a metre difference. So there is half a metre wider, or 49 centimetres wider, on the plot in Queen's Avenue. you have the site in Queen's Avenue is the one in red, and therefore you have an immediate difference in context, and specifically that relates to the fact that you're demolishing the 2 garages on the Queen's Avenue site, which was given delegated approval, and you're next to a full 2-storey property. And therefore, in terms of that proposal, it was considered that it still maintains the spacing with the other plots in the area and steps down to the bungalow successfully to avoid there being an impact on the pattern of development of the area. And this is just an image showing the difference between the 2 plot widths and indeed the context. So we do consider that it is sufficiently different to not necessarily result in a precedent being set, which means that automatically this application should be taken to be acceptable. In terms of the recommendation, it is acknowledged, though, that as members are very well aware, that paragraph 11 in the MPPF is in force. Therefore, it is important that we have to consider the benefits of providing an additional dwelling, being that there is an identified housing need, and therefore weight has to be given to that. It is, however, the creation of a single dwelling, and so there is a small amount of weight to be given to that. And there is still the consideration when considering all new dwellings as to whether or not it results in significant harm that would outweigh those benefits. In our view, the proposal to create a dwelling would result in harm to the character and appearance of the area, and therefore it is recommended for refusal on the sole reason, which is reason 1 in the pack and not reason 2 for reasons I explained earlier. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I move that the officer's recommendation is adopted. Would the Vice Chair please second?
Seconded.
Thank you. And do I have any speakers? Councillor Bayford.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is my ward, and I called this in originally because I visited the site, found it to be tiny, very cramped, and that the proposed development will be incongruous and out of keeping with the area. Castle Avenue is made up of well-spaced properties. I was consequently asked to call this in for the applicant so that we could consider the benefits of this, and I was kindly granted that possibility. I still, having seen the application, feel that it is too cramped. I do feel it's out of keeping, and I really believe that it would have a very negative effect on the street scene, although it would provide us extra housing, but very little extra housing. Thank you.
Councillor Keane.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with the terminology in the report that says about it being crammed in, because that's what it looks like. 21 foot is a very narrow space, and sadly I don't think this development shows the quality of housing that we need to be encouraging. Thank you.
Do I have any other speakers? Oh, Councillor Bright.
Yeah, no, just to agree with what's just been said, really. I do think that it looks like overdevelopment of the site, and also just knowing Castle Avenue and the street scene, which has got very sort of well-spaced bungalows. I think it's gonna look incongruous. Thank you.
Councillor Makinson.
Hi. I feel it's a little bit of a shame that we can't fill in these little brownfield sites. I find the design quite attractive. Having lived in a 4-metre wide house, admittedly of more stories than that, it is possible. And I find it quite attractive. I find it much more attractive than the 2 neighbouring houses, for example. Yes, it's a shame that we can't fit in these. Fill in the gaps would be a good idea. Thank you.
Councillor Wing.
I'm a bit conflicted as well, because I do live in a 4-metre wide house with a second floor that is partly in the roof as well, and consumed by bigger houses all around me. So we do need housing, and we need a variety of housing. and I think the design is so different that it actually fits in, but that's a personal point of view. So I'm quite conflicted on this one, and I agree with, you know, I'd much rather see houses being built on brownfield sites like this than taking our A-grade farmland.
Councillor Matterface.
I just wanted to ask, the Mrs. Rodriguez objecting said that she'd be overlooked. So could I ask, from the rear of this property, leaving out the back garden, how far would it be to number 67 Stone Road? Because this has obviously been the back garden, you said so. I just wonder what the distance was, whether that is actually an argument that could be used.
So it's just over. Actually, if I go back to the rear elevation, sorry, let me just. So it's just over 21 metres. I think the important thing as well is that because of the way the site goes down, it's a single-storey building. You have a rear fence which is going to be 1.8 metres high. So it's really, in our view, and this was borne out by the inspector's decision as well, which didn't refuse it on the impact on neighbouring properties, that the distance combined with actually the number of windows and the level of those windows wasn't considered to result in substantial overlooking, primarily because of that distance.
Okay, I don't have any other speakers, so we will now put the motion for the officer's recommendation for refusal to the vote. All those in favour? And those against? And abstentions? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Bear with me a minute. All right, thank you. That actually concludes the public speaking for this meeting, so I'm now going to call upon the clerk to read out the remaining planning applications. If a member wishes to reserve an application, will they please call out as the clerk reads?
Thank you, Chair. So the remaining applications are AO3, Unit 8, land north of Spitfire Way and east of Columbus Avenue, Ramsgate. AO4, Stanner Court, Manston Road, Ramsgate. AO5, Invicta House, Millmead Road, Margate. AO6, 2 Tidewell Mews, Westgate-on-Sea. AO7, Victorian Shelter Marine Terrace, Margate. And AO8, 64 Grosvenor Place, Margate. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a proposer to move that the applications that have not been reserved be determined in accordance with the officer recommendations? Proposed by Councillor Bayford, seconded by Councillor Keane. Is everyone in agreement? Thank you. So we now move on to... Oh,
I've got to say them again. Go.
Sorry, he's got to say them again. I nearly forgot that bit. Thank you.
So the applications that have been determined are AO3, Unit 8, land north of Spitfire Way and east of Columbus Avenue, Ramsgate. AO4, Stanner Court, Manston Road, Ramsgate. AO5, Invicta House, Millmead Road, Margate. AO6, 2 Tidewell Mews, Westgate, Westgate-on-Sea. AO7, Victorian Shelter Marine Terrace, Margate. And AO8, 64 Grosvenor Place, Margate. Thank you.
Right, thank you. We have one item left on the agenda for tonight, agenda item 5, which is the land at the rear of 20 to 22 Westfield Road, Birchington. Over to the Planning Applications Manager to outline the report.
Thank you, Chair. A very brief item. This is an application that came before members in March last year and was agreed to be approved, but it was deferred back to officers to get a unilateral undertaking to secure the SAMS contribution. We have gone back to the applicant a number of times. However, we haven't received that unilateral undertaking, and it's obviously been a year, and therefore we're bringing it back to members because obviously you were the ones that, you know, it was under your control that it was deferred back to us. So therefore, if we want to do something different, we have to bring it back to you. And therefore, in this instance, we are proposing to refuse the application on the grounds that we haven't received the unilateral undertaking, which would secure the mitigation. I would just say there's a very, very slight change to what's the option in 3.1, because at the end of that reason, which states how any residential development would result in an increased recreational pressure, it says it'd be contrary to paragraphs 187 and 188 of the NPPF, but it doesn't mention policy SP29, which is the policy that says every residential development needs the SAMS contribution. So I'll just add that in, slightly ad hoc, but it's the same. It's exactly the same thing. But the recommendation, therefore, is for refusal on that reason.
Thank you, and I move that the officer's recommendation is adopted. Would the Vice Chair please second?
Seconded.
And does anyone have any comment? Councillor Keane?
Okay. I mean, I just want to know, have you had any communication with the applicant? Because it seems funny to get this far and then nothing.
I only know from the recent lack of communication, I must admit, from speaking to the case officer, but we contacted them in December and effectively gave them a final deadline, and that deadline, I believe, has been passed by more than a month, so hence why it's with you now.
Councillor Matterface?
Just ask a question. By any chance, has this been built and it comes back as a retrospective at some point?
I really believe, given the number of objections we had, that we would have been told by one of the neighbours if they'd built it. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, in that case, we will now put the motion for the officer's recommendation for refusal to the vote. All in favour? And any against? And any abstentions? Okay, that's carried. And so, hang on a minute. That's the end of it. This concludes the business for the meeting. Thank you for your attendance and good night.